Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to talk a little bit about the enterprise and where OnBase fits. Essentially, we're going to tell you it fits everywhere. Well, we're going to try to show you that with some other examples and some live demonstration of some areas where OnBase is being utilized today outside of government. Basic things that you use today, which we know everyone's using it in the courts and some of these other areas that are common to the users of OnBase, but we want to make sure that you understand that you can leverage this in other areas as well. Take advantage of that investment. So what we're going to do is just walk through. I have a few slides, and then we'll walk through some examples. If you have questions at any time, you can yell them out. I'll stop at a few points as well to make sure that any questions are addressed. So I just want to first kind of define enterprise content management. We see that name a lot. It's a buzzword, okay? And we don't like to use buzzwords all the time, but it really does sum up what we're talking about. So enterprise content management, it's truly a strategy. It's how you want to you got to plan it out, how you take over your environment. You want to take this and use it to leverage across all different areas. We have different companies or different departments who say, well, I need a solution here. And they go out and buy a solution. Then another department does the same thing, and another, and you have these what we call silos of information. So everyone's got something that maybe meets one need, but now we can't share that information across very easily because they're in separate databases, they're in separate storage locations. Security is always an issue. So we want to talk about having one kind of a centralized approach. So your methodology has to embrace that, and you have to think about that from a very high level when you start implementing anything to do with ECM. So we want to make sure that it is leveraged throughout. A lot of people can benefit from it. You may have one department or one area that's saying, we have all of this paper, it's cluttering up, we really got to do something about it. But you're probably not the only one. So we want to make sure that communication is open within organizations. Because a lot of times we talk to one department and they're like, really? I didn't know that they were doing that in AP. Well, guess what? They are. So let's talk to them about it.
Muted too, yeah.
It's all right. No one wants to hear me. No one wants to hear after this. So you want to make sure that there's communication within your organization as well, that you're talking to all the departments and finding out what their initiatives are. You heard Phil Bertolini mention this national database of information about what's going on throughout the country. Well, what about what's going on in your own organization? Okay, some of these counties can be very large, and you don't always know what other departments are doing. So that initial investment. So when somebody does have OnBase, it's very easy to leverage this out. Some additional user licensing, some basic configuration, and a whole other department can be brought on relatively easily and inexpensively because you don't have to repurchase a lot of those initial modules and those core components that are already in place. So I'm going to break this down a little bit. The first part of this is enterprise. Now here, most people know we talk about courts. We started in front of the courts and probate and circuit court, district court. All these courts are using the technology today, and you're hearing them speak about it. A part of this conference was having our customers talk. So nobody wants just to hear from ImageSoft all day long, right? We want the customers to tell you how they're using the software today. But in addition to courts, what about all these other areas? What about the road commission? What about the housing authorities? What about public works? Can't they utilize the same type of, don't they have information that they need to store to find quickly? So we want to make sure that you take all of this into account when you're looking at an enterprise solution. Other departments here, we're going to talk a little bit about finance, AP, and HR, but there's the treasurer, and you have your receivables and checks coming in. There's a check-to-bank solution that you may have heard our President Scott talk about a little bit earlier, a way for us to take checks in and process them right into your bank almost instantly, so you get that money into your account right away. And there's other departments too. Your legal, there's always contracts. Contracts need to go through approvals and sign-offs, and all of these different things need to take place. You might need to send to outside vendors to get their signatures. We have solutions in place that can handle all of those types of workflows that you need. IT has lots of documents, procedures, all these things you have to sign off on when you get issued laptops and things like that. All of that's documentation that needs to be stored and ultimately retrieved when they need it. So there's a lot of different areas that can benefit from technology like OnBase. So now we can move to the content. So what is the content? So they used to use document management as the main word. But documents, it's hard for a lot of people to bridge the gap of what a document is. People think a piece of paper is a document, which it is, but there's also other types of documents. It could be in electronic form. You can see all these different ways that content can be brought into an organization and also distributed out of an organization. So not only are we taking it in, but we have to send out information, whether it's to facilitate someone's request. A certified copy has to go back out of the organization. So you need to be able to integrate with fax machines and email systems and all these other devices for all these different departments. So these are just a lot of different ways that content can come into an organization. It's not just scanned paper. In management, we all probably seen somebody's desk like this. I won't say this is an actual customer of ours, one of the prosecutors. I won't say his name because I don't see him in the room. But this is his desk before OnBase. Okay, it's not an uncommon thing. I use this picture a few times and I get a laugh, but this is a reality. This was what he was dealing in on a day-to-day basis. So to find something, it's one thing to just get rid of the paper to clear up space. So some people start to scan and put things on a network folder, which is it's a starting point, but over time that network share grows and grows and grows. And then how do you find that? Instead of me going through a lot of file cabinets, I'm going through a lot of folders on a network. I still can't get to anything quickly. So we need an enterprise system that not only allows me to get this paper off my desk, but allows me to find it when I need to find it. So what I'm going to do is talk about, so most of this is just going to be some demonstrations to show you some different areas. So we're going to focus on accounts payable and human resources, a couple areas where there's some nice workflows as well as some foldering structures and things that can be done to allow that the OnBase product to be leveraged across this. So I'm just going to make a couple notes and we'll go into a system here. So those are a few of the areas. So I'm going to open up an OnBase system and allow us to go look at a few things. So the first thing I have up here in this OnBase system is an enterprise ERP screen. So this is just your ERP system. It could be any ERP or accounting system that they might be using. So whether it's Microsoft Dynamics, whether it's a Lawson screen, it really doesn't matter with the integration. So if you hear us talking to the courts, we integrate with the court systems they use, the court management systems. So whether it's the MICE systems, JIS, and these other systems that are used around, we integrate with those very tightly. Same thing can happen with your accounting system, your HR system. So whether you're using PeopleSoft or it doesn't matter to us, we can integrate using the same type of technology. So here, I have the screen open. I have an actual record open within here. So in an accounting system, I have a document kind of opened in here, but accounting systems don't really have the concept of a visible document. A document in these is pretty much data. Okay? They still give it document IDs and things, but it's really data that they're talking about. If I want to actually see that original purchase order or that invoice that came in, I still have to go out to the file cabinet where that's stored and view that document. So wouldn't it be nice if I was in here looking at the data, if I could just simply double click on the screen and all of a sudden that invoice appears to me. So I don't have to go hunt for it. It knows what it is because I already had the data on the screen. Okay? And it's going to pull this up and I'll open it up full screen just so you can see. And once it's open, it's in an OnBase viewer. I have all of that functionality that I have. So whether it's with annotations and notes that can be applied, I can read all of these different types of notes that are on here. And I can do highlighters and all these different things you can do with a viewer. I'll open up the keyword panel really quick just to show you. This keyword panel is that associated metadata. This is how it knows how to bring back an image to me. So it takes data off of the screen that I was looking at, and it's going to match it up to keyword values and pull back an image that matches it. It could be one image, it could be 10 images, depending on what I need to see or what's important to me at that particular area. I can also view all my notes here in a nice kind of chronological order. So if there's a little bit of a collaboration taking place, I know exactly how it started and where it's at without having to jump around and open them individually. Also is this cross-referencing. So I simply clicked on the little cross-referencing down at the bottom. You can also leverage it right at the top of this ribbon bar. What that does is it shows me other documents related to the one I'm looking at. So I've opened up this by double-clicking on my screen that I already was in. Now I can see all these other documents, and I didn't even have to put in any other parameters. I didn't have to type in anything. And I can easily go in and open up packing slip or whatever the document it is that I might need to see. All the way down to the vendor contract. Maybe they called in and said, hey, there's a problem with our payment terms. I want to open their contract right away and figure out why. Maybe we negotiated net 45 and we put net 30 on there. I'm like, oh, okay, now it makes sense to me. I'll go ahead and correct that. But typically those are stored in two different areas. The contract could be in the legal department. The invoice could be in the AP department. How do you get those? Do you call down to legal and wait for them to fax it and send it over, or make a copy and walk it over? Now I have all this right here at my fingertips. And I'll go ahead and just open up any of these just to show you. So now I can open up that contract and I could read through it and I know exactly what our agreement or arrangements were. So these are just some ideas of how it can be utilized. So this is a little bit about retrieving the information. And again, I initiated all of this just by double-clicking on the screen. Now you can click on different elements. I can click on the purchase order number of 656 and actually open the purchase order. Then I could click on the invoice number down here and open the invoice. So separate documents based on different elements of the screen if I wanted to get that involved. I can also launch in and actually open up the folder view. So foldering is just a way for us to take a lot of different documents and organize them, especially if you have virtual file or regular file cabinets today. This virtual world is going to allow you to arrange it in the same way. So that makes a nice, easy transition for users because they know I always go into the file cabinet and I go to that blue tab and that's got everything in that I need. So here they can do the same thing. They can go in here, go to the blue tab, and all the same documents are going to be here. Okay, so now I've opened this up, and now I see not only the few documents, I see the entire transaction, as well as I can click on here and I can go back and look at past purchase orders. And I have the entire history of this organization and how we've been dealing with this particular customer or vendor, depending on what kind of situation you're in. Okay, so again, I just did a simple click off the screen, a hot click, and I was able to get into there and see all that information. So for some users, they don't even need to know OnBase exists. They just know, hey, I can click the screen now and get documents. This is great. Okay? So it can be that simple to bring it into a new department. So the training issue, that user adoption can all be very, very low. So that's a little bit about retrieval of some documents. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of open up the client itself. So for users who maybe aren't in the accounting system and they don't typically have that ability to double click and get into documents, they can always go right into OnBase directly if they have user rights. The first thing that we would open for them is pretty much a set of queries that allow them to get into the documents that are important to them. So different users need access to different documents. So you can have maybe one query that allows you to get into a certain, that's typically what you do on a daily basis. Or you can have 3 or 4 different types, depending on who you are and your security rights. So I can run this particular query by putting in a particular value and searching. I'll just leave it open for now so I can get back a larger set of documents. So I've done a search. It's going to give me a hit list back of everything matching whatever criteria I had put in here. I can see at the top 123 documents were returned to me on my list. So what makes this nice is I can very easily sort and regroup and get to what I want to. So if I was looking for a particular vendor or a particular date range, I can easily filter that out, or a PO amount. And say, you know what? The PO I'm looking for was under 5,000. So I can easily just toggle this down to under 5,000 and it'll filter out the other ones. So it's a quick way of getting to what I need. I can also say, you know what? I realize now I'm looking for Computers R Us. So I can take the vendor name and quickly throw it up here and just regroup this. Now I can get to the Computers R Us ones and get to the document I want pretty quickly. So I don't have to go in and change any search parameters to kind of filter down. I can do all that from in here. So that's a couple quick retrieval methods. What I kind of wanted to jump off to now is some ways to bring documents in. So there's a lot of different ways to bring documents into the system, whether you're doing it in a batch scanning capacity or whether you're doing it through an electronic import, whether you're getting them in your email and you want to bring them in that way. So we'll talk about a couple ways. One in particular that had come up is the advanced capture. So I wanted to make sure we kind of at least covered how advanced capture can play a role within an AP department. So what I'm going to do is underneath this imaging area, we have a scanning and an indexing component. Now they're broken apart because 2 different people could be doing these roles. It could be a role-based organization where I just do a lot of the scanning. Somebody else indexes at another area. It could be the same person, but it doesn't have to be. So here you'll have your different queues of documents that you can scan into. So you can set up different settings for how the documents come in. So if you want to go through a barcode reading process, or you want to go through another quality assurance step to have somebody visibly look at these because of the type of document they are, then you can do that. And you can set up the various flow of this capture path and save them into a scan queue. So the settings are already there. Once I pick the scan queue that I want, then all of those settings are going to be brought into the scan queue, and everything scanned in will follow that necessary spot. So I could hit the scan button and put things in a scan device, a little tiny scanner perhaps in my department. Or you can also configure a sweep. So maybe if they're coming in through an MFP device, so you're scanning them, you have one in your department, you can scan in that and put them all into a network location. And this sweep will allow me just to go out and kind of grab everything in that network folder and bring them in pretty easily. So this could be an automated process that you would go ahead and sweep them in, and it's going to go bring them in into the scan queue and allow them to be indexed then at that point. So here it's brought in 3 different documents. So what we're going to do is route that through an automated indexing in this case. We're going to say, well, these are invoices. We kind of know they're semi-structured, right? We know the elements we want. We know they're on there. We just don't know exactly where they are. So we're going to allow the automated indexing to kind of go through and find those elements for us. And then anywhere it doesn't know for sure, it's not totally confident based on the threshold that we dictate, it's going to stop and flag it. So anything confident can go right through. Anything not confident can be stopped and let a person, a knowledge worker, go in there and validate whether it's correct or not. So I'm going to jump over to the indexing side. And here's those kind of the capture path I mentioned. So these are the different queues it can go to. So if it's going to go to an image processing, which might be a queue to kind of enhance it a little, to de-skew it, to maybe try to thicken up some of the letterings and things like that, to clean up the image. So these are some of the spots it can go through, the automated indexing, barcode recognition, and so forth. So I have a batch now that we brought in that went through the automated indexing step. So what this did is try to get all that index information. Remember that keyword panel, those metadata values? It tried to populate those for me. So I'm going to go ahead and open this one up. And we'll see how it did. So here's the first document that came through. I can see that the values are populated here. I can see the 3 documents that were in that batch. You'll notice number 2 has a green check. It means everything's A-OK. You don't even need to look at this one. I got all the values. I matched it to your database. Everything checks out. You don't even need to go here. So here, if I click on this purchase order of $9.90, you can see it might be faded, but you can see where it found the $9.90 actually on the document itself. So it's going to highlight the actual area it found it, so I can, as a user, quickly validate off that screen whether it's correct or not. And I can easily jump through and check the various fields that I need to check, and it will jump to that location of the document where it found that particular value, so forth through. And then I would just go through and accept these if they all looked correct. And I'm going to hit the next document here. And you'll see it skipped over number 2 because everything was already checked off OK, right down to the 3rd document in the list. And then here what it'll do is I had it flag anything that it wasn't confident in red. So as a user, they would really only go from essentially red point to red point and just fix those problem areas. So the first one was correct. I made it stop just for demonstration purposes. So in all actuality, only 1 document out of the 3 would have got flagged and stopped by me, and only 1 value. So if you want to say that I had to work on 1 document, you could, but that's 70% of my work was already done for me by the system. So I'm that much more efficient by not having to go through and look at ones that the system has already validated for you. So that's a little bit about automated indexing and how it might look to an indexer. The actual OCR portion is a server component, and you don't actually see that taking place. It's kind of a service that runs. You just see the exception handling as a user. Okay? So then you would go in and process those, and as soon as they're indexed, they're now available for anyone to retrieve, as well as to be routed into a workflow process. Okay? So we always talk about getting documents in at the point of origin, where they come into your organization. We don't want to pass paper around, so we want to get it in, capture it as quickly as we can. As soon as you can capture it, then people can start leveraging that. We don't have to photocopy it and all those other things that are taking place still today, right? We're all still doing it. So the next thing we're going to kind of jump onto is workflow. So we're going to move on to that, and we only have 45 minutes, so apologize if I'm jumping quick. But there's a lot of things we'd like to kind of talk about. So workflow, again, all part of OnBase. Okay, so again, it's the one platform, the one client to do all of this functionality. I don't have to go out to any other area. So I can click on the workflow component, And I've given myself access to pretty much all the workflows in here, so you'll see quite a few. But these are the different life cycles or kind of miniature workflows in themselves. So each one of these is its own process. Now they can all be part of a larger process, and one can feed another. This is done often for parallel processing. So a document can go into two separate workflows, the same document. So I don't have to wait for you to finish doing your job before I can start doing mine. So there's a lot of benefits and efficiencies to be gained in that kind of processing. So also, we'll take a look at this first one here. It's called an invoice approval process. So all of those invoices that we just kind of indexed, as soon as we index them, they automatically go to a workflow process. And then we're going to do some behind-the-scenes matching. We're going to do some three-way matching. You'll hear that term in AP a lot, right? Three-way match. You have an invoice in, we want to make sure that the packing slip, it matches the purchase order, matches the accounting system. All these other things are all in sync. Because if they are, why does somebody have to look at it? Right? If it's a PO-based invoice, it's already been approved. You can't say, I'm not paying this. You already approved the PO. That's kind of the contract. So why even go through it? If everything matches, we can post it right to the accounting system and be done and have the check cut. That saves time right there. But anything that doesn't pass through will get flagged and thrown into this invoice exceptions. So I'll just walk through a couple of these. So this first example, why did this one get caught in the invoice exception queue? Well, the system's going to automatically apply a note. So me as a knowledge worker, when I go in here, I know exactly what the problem is. It's telling me, well, the amount doesn't match what was on the PO. Why is that? Did we get short shipped? And all the different things that could take place now, I would figure out. And then I would correct either one of the values or perform one of the actions on the side to continue this on through the process. I'll look at another one of these. This one has another note on it. This one says it's an unknown vendor. Okay? So this never happens, right? You never get these. So unknown vendor doesn't mean that it's not in the system, but maybe the way it was indexed. Somebody's put ink at the end, and the one in your system doesn't have the ink on it, or it's spelled differently, and they have a subsidiary company and a mother company, and, right? There's lots of different situations where it could still be a valid vendor. So now I would go, okay, it's an unknown vendor. I'm going to make sure it was correct. Everything looks right. And if they're not in the system, maybe I have a button now that says new vendor setup. And then it routes to the person who goes into the AP system and adds vendors into the system. So all of these exceptions can be caught and handled. So things that are good, we want to make sure we have what we need to pass to the next step. We don't want to pass something to somebody to say, hey, well, I don't have this. I can't make my decision. So now it has to go back again. There's no need to do that if we can catch it already up front. So we're going to catch what we can, fix what we can, and then route it to that next person downstream. So here's a few other workflows and queues that it can go to. We have a separate one for non-PO because they may have a completely different process, right? Some of the non-PO ones might not need to go through a review or approval step, like your utility bill or your rent bill, right? They have a different process. So those could go into a different queue automatically. The system comes in, it's going to look and know where to send it. So ultimately, they'll come into this invoice review queue when everything's good. So that means we're not missing any documents. Everything matches the PO, everything matches in the accounting system, the vendors in the database. Everything looks good. Now we send it to someone to say, yeah, this is okay to pay. And then I would make my decision here. And we do have some companies who actually do the GL coding right here in OnBase. Okay? Because if you have a lot of different areas, the accountants don't always know where that money should be taken from, right? There's a lot of different cost centers. So the person who approves the invoice sometimes is the one who knows. Well, this one should come out of this bucket. This one should come out of this other bucket. So they could go in here and they could add their different cost areas and tell it. So when it gets to accounting, they know how to allocate the funds and where to charge that money to. So we do this often where we can do it in here because we can put a lot of logic and things into these e-forms. So we can make sure that all balances out. If I put in 3 amounts, I could, we could stop and say, hey, these 3 amounts you just added don't match the total. I'm like, okay, oh, yep, I typed something wrong. And I can go back and fix it right here. And then when I'm done and I submit it, now it goes to the AP and then ultimately pushed right into your accounting system. Okay? So we never want you to key data twice. So when it's keyed in one place, we'll push it or leverage it to other systems. Okay? We're very strong proponents of that. Ask any of us here in the blue shirts. It's like nails on a chalkboard to me. So is getting like a electronic document, printing it out, and scanning it back in. That one drives me nuts. but it happens. Okay? So this is just one very popular process in the AP world that OnBase is used for today. There's also purchase order requests. It's very common, and this can be an electronic form. This is an e-form that you put right on your intranet to say, hey, I need to buy a new bag for my laptop, right? So I submit a request, automatically goes to my manager. So here's just a quick e-form example of what it could look like, and these can look any way. You can put your logos on there, colors and all that kind of stuff. These are just a quick Unity design, allows you to make them very rapidly and get them out on your system. So this has all the information, your data lookups and everything, so I just put in my ID and it populates my manager and all that automatically. And I simply submit what I need, and then it'll go. It knows who my manager is, and it's going to route right to them for approval, right through the process. No papers necessary. The manager gets an email notification saying, hey, you have a request that you need to look at and approve. So you make your decision on what you need to do here. I have one other example. So after this is approved, it might go to your accounting system. If your POs are created in there, then great. We'll just send the feed to your accounting system, let the PO get generated, and then as that's printed out, we'll intercept that print stream and put it right back in the system automatically, so no one has to index it. So now the PO is inside OnBase as well. Okay? And then when all the other documentation comes in, you want all that in OnBase. So when I pull up that customer service request, someone says, I haven't been paid yet, I can open up OnBase, I can see the request, the PO, packing slip, invoice, even the check that was cut. To have all of that in front of me instantly when a customer calls, that's good customer service. So I could go in and do what I needed to do in this approval process. So I'll show you one other example. If your invoice gets generated in your system, we'll bring it in here, and we can all use our electronic signature to even sign the purchase orders. We talk about judges signing documents in the court. TrueSign can be used in a lot of different locations. We also work with healthcare and other industries, and a lot of our healthcare customers use this to sign purchase orders. So I have an example here of a purchase order with the nice little ImageSoft logo, right? Put that in wherever I can. And so this needs a signature on it. So it went through the approval process. It got accepted as an e-form request. The PO gets generated. Here I generated out of OnBase. I use the document composition to generate and create this purchase order automatically based on the data from that electronic form that initiated the process. So when I'm ready to sign this, I just simply launch TrueSign, and TrueSign is going to allow me to apply my wet signature to this document and officially burn that in as it continues through the workflow process. So my signature needs to go down here in the authorized area. I have it set in freeform, float, okay, because I think that looks the coolest in demos. But typically we would use anchor points, so you don't have to go find the location. You just hit the sign button at the top, and it knows where to put your signature automatically, because especially since this is a document we've generated, we know that location of the signature. But this is funner. So I'm going to go and float my signature right into place. And as you can see, you can put text above, below. So I just put in a name, my title, and the time and date stamp you can see is applied there so that you know when that signature was placed. I simply save this, and it's going to affix that onto the document. The revision number changes, so now I know I'm on the second revision, the original document, and the signed version. It's part of this document now. It's burned in there. I can't take that out of there. Okay? And as you'll see in the courts, it's legally binding signatures that are used throughout the court systems today. So that's just a way that we can kind of complete the whole PO process. So we start with an electronic form. We get it approved. We generate the purchase order. We sign it electronically. I can even have a button here now that says distribute, and it sends it right to the vendor if I wanted to. Okay? So that point of never having to go to paper can be a reality for all of us. So what I'll do now is, we'll kind of shift gears a little bit over to the HR side, so we can kind of cover both aspects of that, since that was the title of the presentation. I want to make sure I at least cover those. So we talked a little bit about workflow, so we'll kind of start at that point so we're not shifting around too much. But I'm going to pull down here, and you'll see I have a set of workflows related to HR. They're all preceded by an HR code. This allows me to easily find them and group them together. So a couple of them that are common. There's an applicant process. And if I have time, I'll try to come back and show you filling out an e-form from a website from an applicant and showing you how that could work. But that's one that would start from your website. Someone would essentially fill out an application for employment, attach their resume, their cover letter, fill out some additional information on that form, submit it in, and it goes right into a workflow process where you start evaluating that candidate for employment. That can lead into the scheduling process and background checks and all the other things that you might need to do. Or if you offer civil service tests and those types of things, that can all be automated to notify them automatically when that civil service exam is going to be next issued. Something like a benefit change. This allows us to, HR to make changes, right? What happens now? You get an email saying, hey, can you change my contribution to 7%? Instead of just sending it to one person, right? That person could be gone for the day. They could be on vacation. So that now you have to send it to everybody, but then maybe one HR mailbox, so 4 people get it. But now one person grabs it, or the other one tried to get it, or somebody else should process that. How do you handle that distribution of work when it's in a kind of a shared mailbox? So by having a workflow set up, we can monitor a mailbox. So anything coming into HR can automatically be brought into OnBase workflow. And you can load balance the queue however you want. Anything that has to do with benefits can go to a certain individual. Maybe one person typically works the benefits queues. Or maybe somebody handles vision benefits and somebody else handles healthcare benefits. So you can segregate that very easily and send those emails to the appropriate person, all with the workflow. Employee review process. Here we have a timer set up. So the concept of timers is, like all of us, we forget to do things, right? Say, oh, I need to remember to do that. Okay? I don't know if this happens to you guys, but I say, oh, I got to go downstairs and get my hammer because I need to fix that loose nail. So I go downstairs, and then I see the couch cushions messed up. So I fix the couch cushions, and I go back upstairs. I'm like, dang, I forgot the hammer. So I go back down. This happens all the time, right? You can get distracted, and we forget to do things that we really intended to do. So timers are a way to ensure that we don't miss something. Okay? So the timer is going to say, hey, every year we do an evaluation, or every 6 months, however your organization wants to handle that. The timer is going to say, hey, since last evaluation, it's been 362 days. So whatever that timer is, it'll wake up automatically, create a new evaluation form, and send a notification to the manager saying, you need to have an evaluation meeting. Fill this out and then review it with your employee. So they never have to remember to do it. They'll automatically get sent those. And if they don't do it in 2 days, they get another reminder automatically. If they don't do it in 3 days, they get another reminder, and so does their supervisor. Okay? So the escalations can all be built into these workflows. So then that's the review process, and they can go through and manage these and work these documents out. We'll open up one of these just to show you what it might look like for a performance review. So here's an employee review form. So this is the form gets auto-generated. I can go in and fill out my little pieces of information. It can be a tabbed form, different areas. You'll see accounting use only on some forms, or HR use only, right? So you fill out the other ones, and you just got to say, okay, I can't touch that box because it tells me I can't. But how about in this world where we can hide it? Don't even give them a chance. They don't even see that box. But when it gets to the manager, wow, that box shows up now. Because he's the manager, he can see that section of the e-form. We can get that granular in security, where we can hide elements when they don't need to be seen. So that's some of the things you can do with the HR process. I'll take a look at this one here, is policies and procedures. So this spurs from a lot of things with procedures, right? You need to create the employee manuals or different sexual harassment policies that you want your employees to acknowledge and sign off on. So this allows you to put a little workflow in place where I can go through, and here I have one document in here, this employee handbook. So every year we want this updated and signed by every employee that they've acknowledged, they've received this, and they've read the book. So we can have this every year kind of wake itself up with a timer, send it to an HR generalist where they can go and tweak the date, make the changes, any new policies that were drafted that year, get them into the document. Then route them through. You can see a few steps, a manager review, senior management. Some documents might need a senior management, some might not, depending on what they are. So they'll flow through the policy procedures and they'll get accepted. So this is just a Word doc right now, so I can edit it. And as you know, with OnBase, I can edit Word documents right here in OnBase. I don't need to launch another application to do that. And ultimately, when it gets to the end and it's approved by everybody, you simply publish it out. So whoever that reading group is, that base employee who should get that particular document, you hit a button, all of a sudden it's distributed out to them through an email notification. Then they can go in to click the link in there, go in and read the document, and there's a little button that says, I read this, I acknowledge it, they click it, so you know. And if they don't, you get reminders, can be sent automatically telling them, hey, these 12 people have not acknowledged this document. And it allows you as a HR manager to know who's read it, who's acknowledged it, and who hasn't. So for legal issues, if someone comes back and said, I'm suing you for this, and you said you can't, this is a part of our policy, they'll say, well, I never saw that. How can you prove they did? You need some mechanism in there. So that's what this DKT is, the abbreviation for Document Knowledge Transfer. So that's the module that allows you to publish documents and push them out to your employee base for them to read and acknowledge. Okay. So that's a little bit about some of the workflow components. I want to go and just show you another file cabinet for the employee. So if I'm in as an HR user, I can open up my HR file cabinet. I can start typing who I'm looking for. You can see it filters me right down to that person in the list because you may have a lot of employees within your county. So here I open it up and I can see all the documents. I have my color-coded tabs if I want. I'll click on employment documents and you can see that we have a folder template in place as well. So one important thing for HR is knowing that all the documents that you deem as required or core documents for every employee are there. So right here I know that we're missing one of those documents. I can take action now and go get that in the system. I can send Andrew an email saying, hey, I don't have your W-4, please fill this out and send it back to me. Okay? So we're looking at one record here, but you can run a report over an entire set of records or employees and get the same type of information back. So you know exactly which ones are complete and which ones aren't and which pieces are missing out of all of those. So from HR and even about back file type, if you have paper you're trying to convert into this electronic world, it's nice to run that report to say, yes, we have everything now in the system. And if we didn't, it might have been lacking in your paper world, but you would have never known that until you actually pulled that paper file and went through it and couldn't find it. Okay, so this is a little bit about the folder structure. And here we're looking at, you can see the emergency medical form for Andrew. Another thing is we have another folder set up for HR. But this one's organized, instead of just by employee off the first level, we have the different departments. So maybe the manager says, well, I don't really want to just see the whole list. I want to go in department at a time and look at information. So now I can go into my operations folder and I can find Andrew because that's the department he's in. And now I can see the very same document that we just looked at from the other folder. So two different folder structures for two different sets of users. Okay, same document. We could all view the exact same document at the exact same time from anywhere in the world. Okay? There's no limitations on that as long as we have the security rights to do so. Okay. So this is the employment documents. The last thing I want to talk about HR is the Outlook integration. Outlook integration this is a great module. It just
your favorite, or this is the last one?
No, it's my favorite. It's legitimately my favorite.
So, all of us use Outlook or some email client, right, a portion of the day. So just like your line of business application we looked at in the very beginning where I can double click and get to documents, I can do that from Outlook as well. With this OnBase integration here, I can get to documents. I can retrieve them right from here. I can upload documents in. I can even open up the workflow if I need to interact with a particular process. But you'll see there's a few different emails in here. I'm going to open up. Some of these are auto notifications. You'll see it'll say like OnBase in the front. These are all generated out of workflow. So the workflow itself sends out notifications at different points of a process, or it may be only at the beginning. Here's one for Sam Hastings. So he had maybe filled out an application, submitted it. It went through a process, and when it got to the actual hiring manager, everything checked out. They're saying, okay, it's up to you now. You got to make that final hire, no hire decision. Here I can have a link right to that document. So I can click it, take me right into the workflow, to execute that final task. But with Outlook integration, we can even go one step further. In this task pane, you can have, and you can bring that up right within the email itself. So now I can actually execute that task. These are the workflow tasks right from Outlook without having to worry about going into OnBase at this point. You saw a quick little sign-on there. There's just kind of like a single sign-on where it started to authenticate me, even though I'm in Outlook, as going to OnBase. So it's going to take my credentials, validate that I'm an OnBase user, and now allow me in and access, and I can execute one of these tasks from workflow, from OnBase. And as I do so, I've executed an add note task here at an earlier time, and it stamps it into that email. So if I want to keep this in my email for a while, I would know. It would say, you approved this on this date. So I'm like, okay, I already approved this one. I don't need to do it again. It's just a way for me to track it mentally if I'm going to keep this in my own inbox longer. We already have the documents in OnBase, and you can see I can view all of these different documents, and I can open them up very quickly and easily if I wanted to review any of the information that was sent. So here's one of the documents within that hiring process, and the primary is there. So that's ways to interact with workflow. If I wanted to, on the other side, if I wanted to bring documents in, let's say this one here, Edward had sent me his resume through email. I want to bring this into OnBase. It can be as simple as taking this resume. I have a folder called nursing already set up because we've posted a nursing position. So I can simply just drag this, drop it into that nursing folder, and now it's going to upload it right into OnBase. It's going to take, you can set up however you want, but I've had it so that the body of the email is the cover letter and the attachment is going to be the resume. Automatically classified, brought in. If I drag one more over here just to show you, we have Andrew Lincoln here. Here's the W-4. If you remember, we were missing that W-4 earlier in his folder. So maybe he emailed it to me, say, okay, here's my W-4 I filled out. I want to upload that. So I'm just going to hit the ad hoc upload and bring that into the system. So here's the body of the message. Here's the attachment. If there's multiple attachments, I can go in here and select the ones I want. Often you'll get some people who use the fancy signature tags, right? It'll come in as an attachment in your emails, and you don't necessarily want that in OnBase. So you can go in here and pick what you want. So here what I would do is I'm going to skip the message because I don't care about that. I just want that W-4. So I'm going to go ahead and hit skip. Now I'm on the attachment. So now I'm just going to simply name this as what document it is. It's the HR W-4. I'm going to put in his employee ID. I'm going to tab off. Auto-populates. I hit upload. And the document now is going to be added to the OnBase repository. And if I went back here and see it was missing, if I just kind of refresh this screen, now here's that W-4 that we just brought in through the email. We didn't actually. So automatically it fulfills that missing requirement. And I've done that from email. I didn't have to even go into OnBase at all to bring that into the repository. So that is a quick whirlwind tour of some of the things you can do with OnBase outside of courts. So hopefully that hits home with some of you. And if you have any other questions, we have a few handouts as well, so feel free to take those with you. Any other questions or anything? Okay. One.
Do you don't ever have to hit save, it's automatically in there, right?
When you do the upload, there's a final button to submit at the bottom, and that's going to save it right into OnBase.
Okay.
So there's not an additional save button you'll have to hit. And it can be as fast as...
automatically upload some things, because I use it. There are some rules and processes that I have that automatically know to skip the message, only the attachment, bring it in as this document type and go.
I mean, you upload it, and
And that's
if you don't hit that other button, if you got out of it for some reason, what if you had a power failure or something, it's not gonna be there. It will be
In
there?
the email you're talking about?
Yeah.
No, you just hit upload and you're good.
Yeah, but what if you didn't hit, that's, I guess what I'm saying.
Oh, if you didn't hit the upload?
that, yeah.
You do have to hit the upload. That's what will give you the
I
upload.
mean, there is a way for us to monitor a mailbox and just auto bring everything in based on some Outlook rules, but that's a little different than what we're talking about with the Outlook is user initiated. So I pick which emails I think go into OnBase and which ones are just my own emails that are for my own usage.
In the demo he showed, either you're hitting the button or you're drag and drop into that folder, In either case, you,
Well, if you drag and drop, then that's.
And it goes
that's-
automatically?
That's done deal.
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
So you can have a drag and drop where you just drag it and you let go and it automatically goes in. Okay. All right. Thank you guys.